Welcome to Session 3, Planning. We discussed strategy at length and said that the strategy leads to specific plans. So let's talk about the plan. What do we need to consider to set up a plan to staff for a particular position or group of positions? What are the things that may enhance our ability to recruit and hire successfully, and what may be a barrier to that end? Once again, nothing strange or magic here. It's stuff we do every day in our personal lives. We just need to apply it to the world of organizations. We all plan, don't we? Obviously, some more than others. In the last session, I said that not having a plan is like going to the grocery store without a list. And some of us do just that. We walk up and down the aisles and pick up what looks good. And we generally spend too much money, have to make return trips to get what we forgot, and spend way too much time just getting something to eat. Then there are the people who jot down items on a scrap of paper and still pick up what looks good in addition to the list. Then there are those people who plan each meal for the week, make a list of ingredients, take an inventory of the house, and ultimately make the list go to the store. Those people probably spend less money, make fewer return trips, and most likely eat healthier meals. And finally, there are those people who do all of the previously mentioned steps, plus organize their list by grocery store aisle to make the shopping experience more efficient. Those folks are really into planning. Way too much for me. I'm probably in the middle of that group, while my wife is in the roam around the store, pick up what looks good group. I plan probably too much, and she plans probably too little. Together, we end up in the middle. She's probably more spontaneous than I am, and I'm more meticulous than she is. Organizations are much the same. However, we all must plan to a certain degree. And to plan effectively, regardless of how anal you are, you must consider the potential enhancements and barriers. And the enhancements and barriers can be the same things, depending on the current situation. My shopping barrier may be financial. I don't have much money, therefore I have to plan better to meet certain restrictions. That's a barrier to successful grocery shopping, wouldn't you say? Or I may have plenty of money and don't care how much I spend. I've never been there, but it sounds like fun. And that's a shopping enhancement. The unemployment rate may be a barrier to staffing. Low unemployment means not many people are available to choose from. On the flip side, high unemployment may mean that we have plenty of people to choose from, and that's an enhancement. And the barriers and enhancements may be internal or external. Regardless, not knowing and giving proper consideration to the barriers and enhancement is almost worse than no planning at all. And that is what we will explore in this session. What are some of those factors? And I should point out that those factors are moving targets. They are constantly changing, and new factors may arise at any time. So what does that tell us? Regardless of how meticulous a planner you are, plans must be flexible and must change. It holds true in shopping, studying for exams, taking a trip, introducing a new product or service, planning a retirement, losing weight, and on and on. It certainly holds true in organizations and in staffing those organizations. It's amazing how close business is to our personal lives, isn't it? And if you are planning your next grocery store trip and mapping out the aisles of the store, leave room for flexible. You never know when they will move the beer and wine aisle. And that may represent a disaster for someone into planning to that extent. In the last session, we talked about strategy. I indicated that a strategy is a plan, but bigger. So let's talk about developing the plan itself, the specific or intricate plan, and discuss all of those factors that help or hinder the success of our plan. Nearly every morning I get up, have my coffee, and look at my wife and say, "What's the plan?" You can tell who runs the show in my house, can't you? But I want to know what to do and in what order. Why? I don't want to do something wrong. I don't want to get in trouble. Or I don't want to do something out of order and have to do it all over again. Oh, by the way, this is good advice for you young gentlemen out there who are either married or anticipating getting married anytime in your future. Follow the plan as outlined for you, and when When you mess up, merely respond by saying, "Yes, dear," to any rebuke you may receive. I can almost feel the rush of air as all the young ladies vigorously nod their heads in agreement with my wise consult. But I digress. Realistically, that is the question on everyone's mind when an opening, particularly a critical opening, appears in an organization. What's the plan? Numerous times I've had that question posed to me by the CEO of an organization. "I don't know," or "we'll figure it out," is not a response that will ensure your career stability. Organizations typically look to HR to develop the overall staffing strategy with input from others, and specifically the plan for each open position. To develop the plan, we must visit or perhaps revisit some of the market factors we considered when developing our strategy. Namely, what is our organization strategy? How do we support the organization culture? What is the labor market situation? And how does technology impact our staffing needs? The text does a pretty good job of discussing each of these, so for the most part, I'll not repeat that here. I will, however, pick out a few topics and expand with more detail or specific examples. Let me start by expanding on the information from page 47. The authors of the text mention SWOT analysis as a method of breaking down the organization's strengths and weaknesses to develop a plan. Let me give you a specific example of how I did that in one organization and how the SWOT analysis impacted the staffing strategy. I was the VP of HR for a large organization. When I did an internal SWOT analysis, see the following website explanation of SWOT analysis at this address. When I did a SWOT analysis of the organization, I found that I had a number of HR managers with unrelated undergraduate degrees or no degrees at all. I also found that we had a large number of individuals with many years of service who had grown up in the organization. In other words, they learned their HR craft within the walls of the organization. They knew a lot about the company, but not much about the outside environment. The organization was very suspicious of outside innovative ideas and didn't handle change very well. As a result, our staffing plan called for all professional new hires in HR to have at least an undergraduate degree, and in some cases a master's degree in business or a related field. I also required current managers to begin work on a degree program paid by the company. I should point out that no one lost their jobs for not having a degree. Through research, I determined that there was an abundance of degreed individuals available to fill open positions as they became available. My analysis determined that there were very few internal individuals who were qualified to meet the needs of the positions as I determined them, and hence the requirement to seek undergraduate education paid for by the company. I wanted to offer internal people opportunities, but only if they were fully qualified. I should point out that many of these non-degreed managers would not be qualified for the professional HR positions posted even by our competitors. That says something about the internal professional qualifications of our staff. An internal assessment told me what we had, and when comparing it to what was necessary in the future, I found a profound weakness in professional expertise and ability to handle the massive change we expected to see in the next 5 years. An internal assessment told me that our competitors were requiring more from applicants than we were requiring from internal candidates. It also told me that there was an abundance of qualified candidates available, and upgrading our skill set would not be difficult. As a result, our internal and external staffing and selection strategy changed. HR would become more professional and exert greater impact on the organization. Analyzing where we are and where we need to be to meet future challenges is an important aspect of strategy in developing a plan. The above illustration also points out another point of analysis, the external labor market. Let's explore that in more detail than that devoted by the text. There are many resources for review outside the organization, and I must say managers, and particularly HR managers, should have some indication of the status of the labor market all the time. I've been in many executive staff meetings and planning meetings when discussing HR needs and was asked directly, how is the employment market? Are there plenty of people available, or is the market very competitive? I don't know, or I don't have a clue, are generally not acceptable answers. HR managers are expected to understand the competitive labor market nationally, regionally, and locally. Specifics are not necessary, but one should be able to speak intelligently about, quote, the numbers, unquote. So let's talk about those numbers, and particularly the labor force. The labor force consists of those people available and willing to work, those people we can hire for our open positions. Labor force numbers are in the news frequently, particularly given the unstable economy of late. Unfortunately, good jobs seem to be disappearing at a steady rate. So what does that mean to you as a potential or maybe actual job seeker? And what does that mean to organizations who have a need for specific talent? Well, the implications for you, the job seeker, are great, and I'm sure you already know that. But you should be asking, why do the numbers look so bleak for me, and how do I read those numbers? I should point out that the numbers are less important than the trends. Looking at one number is a mere snapshot in time and doesn't really tell the whole story. It's a little like looking at your family budget. A single month in the red, of course, matters, particularly how much in the red, but 1 month in the red does not a bankruptcy make. Several consecutive months in the red, signifying a negative trend, should be cause for great alarm. And in many of the employment numbers, we are seeing just such a negative trend. And some of those that are trending positively are suspect. I've been fortunate enough to live through many different ups and downs in our economy. Maybe calling it fortunate is a stretch, but interesting is certainly applicable. I remember when inflation was 10% or more and the mortgage rates were 15% or more. I can remember times when unemployment was high and jobs were tough to find, and times when unemployment was around 4%. And there were far more jobs available than workers. Those were the good times. With all that background, I have to say the economy is not particularly good now. Democrats will tell you the economy is improving, while Republicans will tell you it's stagnant. But the truth is, it's not good. And much of what's bad about our economy is tied up in the workforce, and most of the solutions are tied up in the workforce as well. Factors to consider include: how many jobs are there for people in the labor force? What are the jobs available? What is the quality of those jobs? Are they good paying or poor paying jobs? Are they part-time? Are they full-time? Are they temporary or are they permanent positions? How many new jobs are being created each month? What are the quality of those newly created jobs? How many people are actually in the labor force, and is that increasing or decreasing? What is the unemployment rate, and what is the unemployment rate within various groups, young people, minorities, gender, etc.? What is the education level of the workforce? Where is the workforce located? Is it urban or is it rural? And where are the open jobs located? Are they urban or rural? And what is the median income of the middle class? Now, there are probably more factors that I have omitted, but this gives you an idea that no one number tells the story. And remember, numbers don't mean anything. It's the trends that count. So let's look at some of the trends and see what's up. The labor force participation rate consists of those people working and looking for work as a percentage of the population. This number peaked before 2000 at 67% and has been shrinking. The labor participation rate as of November 2016 is 62.7%. That is most certainly a negative trend. That means that less people are participating in the labor market. They are not actively contributing in a productive environment. Some have retired as the population grows older, but many have simply given up finding work and stopped looking for employment. How do they live? How do they exist without work and income? Well, their income is generated from welfare, disability programs, or other social welfare programs. That means that someone is paying, and it is essentially those who are working and paying taxes. The more people pay in taxes, the less they pay for goods and services, and the less people are needed to work. A decreasing labor participation rate is generally not a sign of a healthy and good economy. The national unemployment rate, those unemployed and looking for work, is a little less than 5%. From 2004 through the middle of 2008, the unemployment rate was around 5% and as low as 4.4%. After mid-2008, the unemployment rate steadily climbed to well over 9% and has been declining since 2012 to its current rate. The unemployment rate is trending in the right direction, but there are still some potential problems with this trend. Decreasing unemployment rate normally means more people are finding jobs. However, it could also mean that more people are dropping out of the labor market as a result of the decreasing labor force participation rate. And I suspect this is partially true. Another concern with decreasing unemployment numbers is that the jobs people are getting may not be quality jobs. They may be part-time or low-paying or temporary. And I suspect this is also true to some extent. A third concern with unemployment numbers is the rate of unemployment in various segments of the population. For example, the unemployment rate for people 20 to 25 years of age is a little over 8%. It is also speculated that many people in that age group are underemployed or working at positions that are far less than their qualifying education. This represents the person with a master's degree who is working the counter at Starbucks. Regardless of the composition of the unemployment rate, the trend is downward, which is good, but 5% coupled with the diminishing labor participation rate is still way too high to signify a healthy economy. So if asked at this point, I would say the economy is not particularly healthy, and it is still, in general, an employer's market. In other words, there are more people available than jobs, particularly good jobs. This can impact the time required to fill a position, starting pay rates, number and quality of candidates available, and many other aspects of our staffing plan. The above summary is the kind of answer I would give when asked about the condition of the labor market in executive meetings. How does education of the workforce contribute? It is safe to say that many jobs are lost due to technological advances. Also, there are open positions in the labor market right now. However, many of the open positions require specific skills or higher education. If the labor force population does not possess the proper education for the open positions, then the unemployment numbers are difficult to change to any great extent. I remember when there were many unskilled and relatively good-paying jobs available. That is not the case in today's economy. Unskilled jobs are fast being replaced by automation. I remember when an undergraduate degree was a ticket to success. Now, in many professional areas, a graduate degree is required for entry. The world is changing and changing fast. Depending on who is giving the message, Democrat or Republican, the numbers you hear will be spun to support the political agenda of the reporter. None of these numbers tell us the whole story, but even with the spin, we can draw some conclusions. The picture is not good for business or for you at this point in time. Both political parties are to blame, and neither are doing anything of any importance to improve the economy. Will that change in the future? Who knows? Regardless, we must deal with the reality that we do not have the economy we hope for. Perhaps the most alarming trend and reality of all is the honesty of our elected officials. Political honesty is certainly on a negative slide. This is merely an example of the trends and conclusions that can be gleaned through workforce analysis. How can one expect to achieve success in any activity if they don't understand the environment? It's like a football team entering a game with no understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of the other team. Where are we playing and under what conditions? Workforce analysis provides that input to the staffing strategy and is very important to the composition and success of the strategy. You can find the labor market information, of course, on the internet, along with many articles to help interpret that data. Visit www.bls.gov. That will give the basic numbers, and from there you can do your own analysis or use the government data to better understand the analysis presented to you from either a biased or an honest perspective. Caution, be skeptical. Once we have determined what the outside environment looks like and how it impacts our staffing needs, we can combine it with our internal assessment. We now know what we have, what we need, how easy or difficult it will be to fulfill the needs, and where we should look. All of those combine to help us understand the best methods to use in our recruiting and selection activities. We have a strategy and a plan. Remember, it doesn't eliminate mistakes and it doesn't guarantee success in our hiring and selection decisions, but it is much better than a guess. And don't you agree that strategy and planning help us reach success much better than luck? The text goes on to discuss additional labor market issues and factors, both internal and external, that must be determined when analyzing our current position as it relates to where we need to be as an organization. The authors make good points and do a good job of exploring the intricacies of planning. They end with a rather lengthy discussion on diversity. But in the case of diversity, let me rattle the cage a bit and give you perhaps a different view of diversity than the legal and social view we most often hear espoused. Diversity is a buzzword. We need more diversity in our organization. Why, one may ask? The answer is often because the government or the law says we have to be more diverse. Although there may be a thread of truth in that, it is probably the worst answer you can give a business manager or a business organization. We should never seek diversity for diversity's sake. We should seek diversity for the business's sake. We should seek diversity because it improves the business. And we should make the case for diversity in business terms. You see, if we seek diversity to merely ensure that we are compliant, we may lose track of the many KSAOs necessary to meet future challenges and thus harm the business. And one thing is for sure, businesses that go out of business are not diverse any longer. All employees are equally unemployed. Now, that is not an indictment against minorities, females, or any other diversity segment. I'm not saying that they don't possess the skills to advance the organization. I'm merely saying that diversity must fit within the long-range business and staffing strategies. Don't give up job skills and requirements to be more diverse, and don't give up diversity out of fear of organizational change or legal issues. A reliable assessment of KSAOs is a critical component to achieving diversity and business success together. We know it is not okay to recruit only males. We know it is not okay to recruit only white applicants. But is it okay to recruit for only females? I believe it is acceptable if your KSAOs support such a recruiting plan. Let me give you an example. I worked in a company in which I had responsibility for all of HR. We employed about 500 people, and slightly over half of them were females. Our HR staff consisted of 2 white males, one of which was me. As we were steadily growing and expanding, we decided to add another HR staff member. I conducted an analysis of where we were going, and the challenges before us, and our strengths and weaknesses. In that analysis, I believe that I found one glaring weakness. Our HR staff didn't represent our employees well. Believe it or not, men and women are different. Men and women think differently, act differently, and have different concerns, etc. Our workforce was very diverse, but our HR staff wasn't. I decided that this new role should be filled by a female. The women of our organization needed someone to talk to other than a white male. Although I accepted resumes from men and interviewed men for the position, I was really interested in hiring a female. And I didn't care about diversity. I cared because it made our organization stronger to have a female on our HR team. However, I held fast to our established KSAOs and only considered qualified people. After a careful search, I hired a young black female to our staff. She was a great hire. Imagine how those different views and issues were represented to 2 clueless white males. In short, our organization was stronger. Oh, and I should mention that the young lady I hired was outstanding, and after several years left our organization to manage a larger HR staff in another business. Was I right to seek primarily a qualified female? Was I right to consider the diversity of our workforce in determining our hiring criteria? It is certainly a point for discussion. But notice I didn't search for or hire her for diversity reasons, in other words, to fill out a checkbox on an AAP or to-do list. But I hired her to strengthen our staff and our business. In short, diversity is a valid business issue. I believe in diversity in the workplace because we are a diverse nation. Our customers are diverse, our suppliers are diverse, our communities are diverse, and our employers and businesses, we must be diverse as well. Diversity is a strength, but only if we treat it as a business issue, not a social issue. I'm sure some of you disagree, but it certainly gives you something to think about. One quick note on information in the text. Throughout this chapter, but particularly on page 61, the authors go into some rather heavy statistical analysis. Understand the concepts, but don't worry about the formulas. I will not ask you on an exam to go into a ratio analysis or to forecast HR requirements. I may ask you what a ratio analysis is, however. So, what should you take from this chapter? Planning is important. Staffing is not just hiring people to fill open positions. It is hiring the right people to the right positions efficiently. To do that, you must have a strategy and a plan. This chapter and lecture is about building that plan. In the next chapter, we will discuss external recruiting. We will fill in the blanks of our plan.